So next we're going to start looking at the UV tool. And UV is relatively new from the point of view of Python tooling, but it's been becoming more and more popular. If you're using this to any extent, I thoroughly recommend reading through this documentation and guides. It's really well written and it provides lots and lots of different examples and everything else. If you need to install it at home, the instructions are here, either using curl to download the scripts or in PowerShell here. Personally, I just install it on my Mac with Brew and I've never had any issues with it. Now, the key thing this does is it replaces a number of tools that we previously used, for example, PyEnv. It also replaces things like Pt3 and pip and everything else into one tool. And this tool was written by the same people who also wrote the tool rough, which you may have used for doing Python formatting and checking. There's another tool they've written now called Ty, which checks type hints, which again I use a lot. So at its simplest level, what this is a tool to create Python projects, to initialize them, and to manage all of our dependencies. It has lots of extra bits and pieces as well, which we'll cover as we go through, but we'll just start with its very, very simplest sort of approach. And that is, here I am in an empty folder. UV is installed in public devel. Now, what you can see is, because I've tested this already, the warp terminal and the shell have gone, oh, do you want to do this again? So I can literally press the arrow, fill in this line, and what you can see there is it said initialize project, test project, at home, jmacy test project. If I change into this project and do an ls, you can see there's some files there. What I will do is an ls-al, because actually there's more hidden things in there. So what you can see is it's generated, this is a Git project by default, so it's created a main branch, added all the correct files. It's generated a .git ignore file. So you can see there with all the sort of basics that you need. You will have to add to that if you're doing anything more complex, but at its simplest level, that's great. It's generated a main.py file, which is just the simplest of mains that you can get there. And it's also generated a pyproject.toml. Pyproject.tomls are now the replacement for the requirements.txt, and virtually every single IDE and sort of Python tooling will read this file and use it for configuration of what we're doing in Python. They are very simple to generate, very simple to sort of work with. And again, if you've not used these before, take some time. There is a pep all about it that you can read and get used to using them, because they are used by multiple different tools. Now, at the moment, if we want to run this, we can just type uv run main.py and that will run the program for us. You can see there, hello from test project. What you'll also notice is by default it said using CPython 3.9.21, which is the standard system Python, and it's also created automatically a virtual environment for us. So if we wish, we could source vm bin activate as you would do normally, and now we've got our own, we can just type our own Python and run 3.9.21 and everything else like that. And we could just type Python main.py and would run it like that. We could also edit that main file and we could add in our standard hashbang. Use a bin env Python 3 like that, and then we can go back and chmod plus x main.py, and we can run as we've always done. However, as we'll see as we progress through this, the better way of doing this now is by using a different hashbang which invokes UV, and there are extensions in Python tooling now which allow us to actually embed metadata in the hashbang. So we can have a hashbang script and we can add all sorts of extra information about packages we need and things like that. I tend not to use that. I tend to just use UV to manage everything, but you have options as with all these things. So the first thing I will say is obviously running Python 3.9 is not necessarily the best thing to do. That is the system Python that comes with RHEL 9. It is also the tools that we're going to use. So internally, a lot of the RHEL tooling uses that version of Python. So it's locked down. You can't extend or modify it that well. So what we really need to do is to actually get a better version of Python installed. And this is just going through here and explaining all of that. Now, UV itself allows us to add extra elements of Python. It comes bundled with a series of different versions of Python. And when we use that, we can install a particular version that we need, and then we can use that version as our default Python. And we can also then test against other versions. Now what you'll see here is a list of them all, and in the next lecture we'll go through and install a correct version and see what the implications of that are. But in particular, you'll notice that we've got beta versions of 3.14 here. We've got the latest 3.13s, we've got the 12s, the 11s and 10s and so forth. Now obviously choosing which one of these to use is problematic sometimes. There may be versions of tools or packages that don't exist for particular versions. So for example, I tried using 3.14 beta the other day. None of the SDL libraries are there, none of the PySide libraries are there, so you can't do much with it. 3.13 is working quite well with most things, but you will find that some older bits and pieces of your code may not necessarily work. I tend to focus on what the VFX reference platform is using for this particular year. You'll notice that this year everyone is going to target 3.13x. I think because we're using Maya 2025, that's targeting 3.11. Houdini at present, I believe, is on 3.12. So again, even that is not consistent. The lucky thing is we can choose a version of Python to use explicitly in our projects, and we can target various things. And in the next lecture, we'll look at how we can set that all up and use it. In particular, I have a tendency at the moment to use Python 3.12 for most things because it seems to be pretty stable and feature complete. It's still in maintenance, and a lot of the machine learning libraries and other things are working well with that. So next time what we're going to do is we're going to add a new version of Python, and that will allow us to see what happens when we run it with that version.